Okay, I am showing 5:30 on my computer, and Jason Engbrecht has not yet joined, but I do believe he will be at some point, but we're going to get started. I know Yvette Marthaler will not be with us. So this is our regularly scheduled virtual business meeting, Monday, March 30th. So just bear with me here. Welcome, Jason. Jason just joined. So Ms. Treadway, will you determine if we have a quorum tonight, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we do have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Once again, we have 6 in attendance, and Yvette Marthaler will not be joining us. At this time, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. This could get a little crazy here with all these mics turning on. So, anybody else going to turn their mic on?
Yeah, I've got mine on, Chad.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Awesome. Thanks. Ready? Pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands,
one
nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty
and
justice for all.
Well, we made it through that, so thank you. Before we ask for the approval of the agenda, there is one item that I'd like to add, and it's going to be strategic planning, and it will go as item 10G. If everybody would take a look at that. And one other thing to note for tonight is every action item, we will do a motion and a second and then ask for roll call per the MSBA guidelines on these virtual meetings. So we'll do that, and Ms. Treadway will ask for a roll call after every action item. With that said, item number 4, community comment. Kathy, it's my understanding that you received no emailed public comments. Is that correct?
That is correct. I received no emails.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Sesker, I don't believe we have any recognition awards or presentations tonight. Can you just confirm that?
That is correct. We don't have any tonight.
Mr. Chair, if we could go back, I don't believe we ever did approval of the agenda with an action.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Bellingham. You are correct. Thank you. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
We got Courtney and Carolyn.
Yes.
Ms. Treadway, will you do a roll call, please?
John Bellingham.
Aye.
Courtney Cavalier.
Aye.
Jason Engbrecht.
Aye.
Jerry Robichaux.
Aye.
Carolyn Treadway. Aye. Chad Wolf.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you for that. And Mr. Bellingham, once again, thank you. Please chime in if I missed something here again. So thank you. Item number 6, the consent agenda. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Treadway with the motion and Mr. Robichaud with the second. Ms. Treadway, please do a roll call.
John Bellingham.
Aye.
Courtney Cavalier.
Aye.
Jason Engbrecht.
Aye.
Jerry Robichaux.
Aye.
Chad Wolf.
Aye.
Carolyn Treadway. Aye. Motion passes 6-0.
Great, thank you. Thank you, everyone. We're getting used to this. Retirements. And I apologize here as I'm kind of operating between this and board book at the same time. Lisa Simon, 17 years of service. She is retiring here, and she is going to continue her pursuit and career in writing. Anybody would like to say any comments? Actually, I guess, I'm sorry, before the comments, I guess maybe I'll do a motion first and then move on to the comments. So do we have a motion to approve Lisa Simon's retirement?
So moved.
Second.
Having a motion and a second before a roll call, any further comments or discussion?
Lisa's done an amazing job, first as an EL teacher in the district, very committed to her students, and has done a remarkable job over those years. She also has served as the literacy coach during the last 2 years at Jefferson, and again, has done a remarkable job. We can't thank her enough for her 17 years of service.
I'm seeing a bunch of nodding heads. Anybody else want to chime in? I'll give you a couple seconds. No, okay. Ms. Treadway, well said. And Lisa, if you're able to watch this in tape delay, I guess. Yeah, thank you for your service and your incredible service, and we wish you all the best in your future endeavors. With that, Ms. Treadway, will you do a roll call, please?
John Bellingham,
Aye.
Courtney Cavalier,
Aye.
Jason Engbrecht,
Aye.
Jerry Robichaux, Jerry, you probably need to unmute. Jerry Robichaux?
Yes.
Chad Wolf?
Aye.
Caroline Treadway, aye. Passes 6-0.
Thank you for that. Item 7B, retirement for Mr. David Schenke, 10 years of service, and he is retiring here. I apologize here as I'm working both things. He is retiring here at the end of May 29th. I will ask for a motion to approve of Mr. Schenke's retirement.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Bellingham with the motion and Mr. Engbrecht with a second. Any comments or discussion before a roll call? All right, we'd just like to once again thank Mr. Schenke for his 10 years of service and wish him all the best in his future endeavors. So with that, Ms. Treadway, roll call, please.
John Bellingham,
Aye.
Courtney Cavalier,
Aye.
Jason Engbrecht,
Aye.
Jerry Robichaux,
Aye.
Chad Wolf,
Aye.
Caroline Treadway, aye. Passes 6-0.
Thank you for that. Item number 8, the finance report. Mr. Sesker or Mr. Andrews, would you like to take this away?
Yeah, so I'll start. The first part, you can check to see your enrollment report is on there. Down 10 students. That's pretty normal for this time of year. The finance reports look like they're in line. Andrew, I don't know if you have anything more to add.
Nope, you hit that one right on the head.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Any questions? These are just reports. Any questions from board members for Mr. Sesker or Mr. Andrews? Okay, thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. We will move on to item 8.3, gifts and donations. And this is a resolution, but I will read these first. Erickson Chiropractic, 4 weight training machines valued at $1,000 for the Faribault Area Learning Center Phy Ed Department. Sorry, I just got to make sure I'm not, yeah, my mic is not muted. Okay, thank you. Number 2, donations for the Nest at Faribault High School. James Tohal, for $50, Camille Crandall for $200, Rotary Leap of Kindness, $635. Donation number 3, Kubal family, $320 to the Faribault Middle School for student needs, clothing and etc. We thank all of these people for their donations and generosity and forms of support. With that, do we have a motion? No, this is a yes, we still need a motion. Do we have a motion to accept these gifts and donations?
Mr. Chair, I'll move resolution 2019 accepting gifts and donations.
Thank you, Mr. Bellingham. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Engbrecht. Any further discussion or questions on these items? Hearing none. Ms. Treadway, will you please do a roll?
John Bellingham,
Aye.
Courtney Cavalier,
Aye.
Jason Engbrecht,
Aye.
Jerry Robichaux,
Aye.
Chad Wolf,
Aye.
Carolyn Treadway, aye. Mr. Chairman, it passes 6-0.
Thank you for that. Item number 8C, consideration to approve to reject all boiler bids. Todd or Kane, would you like to give us some insight here before we make a motion on this?
I can also give you some updates if you'd like quick there, Chad.
Okay, perfect. Yep, thank you.
So the district has need of mechanical upgrades, including full boiler replacements at the high school. At this time, the project bids came in higher than we anticipated. So after consideration of district long-term facilities maintenance funding, existing budget constraints, as well as our consultation with WOLD, we believe that would be in the best interest of the district to rebid the project for only full boiler replacement.
Thank you, Andrew. Mr. Sesker or Kane, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
Well, maybe Kane could explain to the board why the bids were so high. Kane, do you have some insight on that? I know I saw him in here. Andrew, you want to try to fill in, and then Kane,
Yeah,
if you unmute, just pop right in.
Yeah, we had some other work that was wrapped in there with the mechanical upgrades on the shop side. So that's what drove it higher than anticipated. And that's when Wold came back and told us that we should really consider taking that off and rebidding out for just the boilers.
Mr. Chair, this is Jerry Robichaux. So what are the consequences of not doing what was in the original bid and just going to boiler?
It just pushes out the project timeline on when we would complete those upgrades. And so we can push that back a year or two and get that project done. We will use the LTFM funding. This will just allow us to not deficit spend our LTFM funding.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, again, follow up. So specifically, Andrew, what are those items that are going to be removed from the bid?
The specifics I was relying on Kane for, and unfortunately, I don't have those particular items in front of me.
And I see his phone isn't working or something, so.
Yep, I apologize.
No need to apologize in this world of uncertainty.
All right, thank you. With that said, I appreciate the info, Andrew. Thank you for that. With that said, do we have a motion to consider to reject all boiler bids as stated in the packet here?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Robichaud, and thank you, Mr. Engbrecht, for the motion in the second. Any further discussion or questions?
Yeah, just one thing. I just got back, Chad, a response from Kane. he said the wood shop and auto shop upgrades are being taken out of the bids. Those were originally in the bids. So doing the boilers separately should give us a better idea of what those costs will be.
Thanks, Todd.
Yep.
All right, thank you. Much appreciated. Kane, thanks for sending that in. Any further comments or questions? Okay, Ms. Treadway, if you'll do a roll call, please.
John Bellingham,
Aye.
Courtney Cavalier,
Aye.
Jason Engbrecht,
Aye.
Jerry Robichaux,
Aye.
Chad Wolf,
Aye.
Carolyn Treadway, aye. The motion passes 6-0.
Thank you for that. Item 9, other committee reports. We do not have anything for District Advisory Committee. We do not have a Technology Department update, but we do have an Insurance Committee update. Nicole Yoakum.
And Mr. Chair, just before Nicole talks, I think it might be good. We decided instead of going through the committee reports, just have each of the cabinet members give a brief summary. That kind of encapsulates all the different reports. So after Nicole, if you don't mind, going through the rest of the cabinet members, that would be terrific.
You know, I think it'd be great, especially as today was the kickoff for distance learning, and that'd be really wonderful, great feedback. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me okay? Okay, great. So just to start off with our HR update, right now we're wrapping up all of our employment agreements that have been approved by the board these last few months. We're figuring out retro payments and benefit updates for all those employees that have been working on an expired contract as of last July. So that's taking a lot of time to get through all of those updates. We're also gearing up for our next round of negotiations, which will be all of our local 70 employment agreements. That's our hourly employees. And then we have one MAPE contract, which is our ASL interpreters that we will be working through. So they've all submitted their request to intent to bargain, and also their data request, which is a lot of financial information for the last 2 years on all of their members, a lot of their payroll information and benefits and so forth. So we're starting to prepare all that financial information to be able to submit to them and then start negotiating with all those groups. So that's kind of exciting, fun for me. The other thing that we're doing is we're getting into our open enrollment season for all of our benefits. So we have some significant insurance changes, health insurance changes that we'll be talking about later on down on the agenda. And then everything else in terms of our insurance will be staying pretty much status quo. So we'll talk a little bit further on about some exciting insurance stuff. Do you have any questions at all for me on any HR pieces before I go into our insurance stuff? Oh, okay. Okay, so I'll do our insurance committee report now. So as I mentioned, we've had some significant changes this last few months. Our teachers have voted to move to a PEEP plan. The PEEP plan is a public employee insurance plan run by the state. After that vote happened and that decision came, our insurance committee got together and decided that the rest of the district should not make a change to PEEP. We established some goals. One was to stabilize our rates and reduce the ebbs and flows of our rates from year to year for our employees and for our district. We also wanted to work towards long-term stability for all of our plans. And then lastly, we wanted to make minimal changes to our current plans because people seem to really like our plans that we have that we're offering to them already. Once the committee agreed that we should propose to the school board what the changes would be, the law tells us that we have to take our union with the largest membership and have them vote on those changes and accept the changes. And so we prepared a presentation and we sent it out to all of our paraprofessionals because our paraprofessional group is our next largest group after our teachers. We put all this information together remotely for our paras, and asked them to vote on the changes. And fortunately, they voted 94.9% in favor of these proposed changes. So that was really cool. We were really excited to see that. Then the official proposal will be coming in front of you for consideration later on down into the agenda. We'll be having our insurance representative from One Digital joining us, and he'll go over a short little presentation and explain to you what we're looking to do. All right, any questions, or John or Chad or Andrew, if anyone else would like to share any information?
No, thank you for all your efforts with this, and it's a lot of meetings and a lot of new knowledge and changing times. So thank you to you and Andrew and all the bargaining groups and everybody that serves on these committees. It's been a lot of time and a lot of effort. So thank you. Nicole, do you have anything else? Otherwise, we'll turn it over to another cabinet member to follow you for Todd's update recommendation.
Nope, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Nicole. Appreciate all the work that you're doing. Up next, we have Rob Dainert. Rob, you want to talk a little bit about what's happening with our special education programs, and maybe even talk a little bit about the paras. I know I don't want to steal all of Andrew and Anne Marie's thunder, but a lot of the paras are under your supervision, Rob.
Yeah, so last week we finished up our distant learning plan. We had a lot of materials sent out, and the buildings did a great job getting all those materials sent out. We had a special ed bus that went around the next day, and we only had about 16 packs of curriculum to deliver to people's addresses, and that's out of 600 special education students. So I'm really happy that the parents were able to come in and get all that stuff together. In our district learning plan, the paraprofessionals are engaged in connecting with students, and they can do that in a number of ways. Teachers have divided their caseloads up and have everybody on a rotating schedule. So they'll connect with students by phone, by email, by video, and some are even writing letters to students, the elementary students, so that they can get some mail. They're also volunteering in some of the hourly positions like childcare that we have in food service. Most are engaged for working with students. We also have high school paraprofessionals on call doing homework hotline and help. We are able to use the paraprofessionals in roles outside of special education. The legislature and the governor's order approved us to be able to allow paraprofessionals to do other things like food service and childcare and still funnel that through the special ed funding formula. So we're still getting reimbursement on all those hours that they work in other areas, but we're allowed to use them in any way that makes sense for the district. And we've really been creative in trying to get everybody involved in doing things. I want to acknowledge the teachers. They did an exceptional job creating a distance learning plan for the students with disabilities that I feel is equitable and meets the needs of their IEP goals. And they did this in record time. If 2 weeks to come up with a plan that's going to carry them out for the next 30 days or so is fantastic. And they did a remarkable job in being creative and being flexible. We have many teachers who have already pushed out videos to the students for their different lessons. We have teachers preparing packets and binders for those students who don't have internet access and have just phone access. They've contacted parents to make sure parents understood the plan. They've just done a remarkable job. We're still working out a system to get some early childhood supplies out to families. We ordered supplies last week to go into their curriculum bags, but the supplies didn't arrive until this week. So we're working with transportation to try and get those supplies out to our early childhood families so that they can have some of the things that they need for their activities, chalk and bubbles and just different manipulatives that the kids can use. So that's our update for special programs. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you, Rob. Great job to you and your team, and please continue to thank him from all of us.
Yes.
Next up, if I could have Andrew fill in on what's going on. He's had a busy couple of weeks. Andrew?
Thank you, Todd. Good evening, board. So it's been quite the amazing adventure over the last couple of weeks. So we're here in operations. We've worked around the clock to put together our meal service program that targeted our most vulnerable students of food instability. And our efforts have been paying off, and we have seen growth in our programming. For a little bit of perspective, we started out serving an average of 536 kids per day when this all kicked off. And now, as of today, we are serving an average of 915 kids per day. So that's nearly 400 students per day in growth. So we're doing a really good job on the food service side. A couple of updates on our programming. First, we ordered some banners for all the buses to help further identify them throughout the community. We're taking all the feedback we're getting from the community, and we're analyzing that and putting into play because we know we're going to be doing this for the next month. Second, we're working on a 7-day hot menu that consist of a breakfast and a lunch equivalent. And so I've been working with Sodexo to put in place a hot offering that will go into effect at our Faribault Education Center location. We'll have some limitations, but we're going to try and get a 7-day hot menu off the bat and then grow it from there. I'd really just like to thank our food service and transportation partners, Sodexo and Faribault Transportation Company, and then as well as all of the hourly staff that have been helping us out, like Rob mentioned previously. They have been packing food and manning the stations throughout the community, and they've been working tirelessly to feed these children. It's been awesome. So thank you to all of them. On the business office and finance office side, it's been business as usual, but in a remote fashion. We're continuing to transact all of our critical business functions, as well as doing what we can to meet the needs of our customers, that the teachers, our secretaries, administrators, everyone throughout the district. Every day it seems like we are presented with a mountain of new challenges in this distance learning environment, but we continue to innovate and get creative with all of the facets of our operations. And the team has been transitioning really well from my perspective. I want to thank my business office staff for all the help and support during this time. They continue to impress me, and I'm really proud of them. So that is my report at this time. Are there any questions for me?
I do have one. Hot meals will be served 7 days a week at FEC?
I might have misspoke. We will have a 7-day hot meal rotation. So we will have a menu that we'll put out to go with that. And right off the bat, Brenda was able to provide. Yep.
Okay. And then what are the expectations? I should have asked Rob, but I think you could answer this. What are the expectations for our support staff in the terms of hours? I assume they're tracking the number of hours they're committing each day. How does that look?
I'm sorry, Carolyn, you broke up there. I didn't quite catch the whole question.
I assume that the support staff, paraprofessionals in particular, are tracking the hours that they are committing for that they're working. How is that being done, and what are the expectations for the number of hours that they commit to?
I must be having some technical difficulties, Carolyn. I'm sorry, it cuts out like right in the middle of your question every time.
You are.
I apologize.
I think maybe Rob can answer that, or Nicole. You're just breaking up a little bit, Andrew. It's funny that Andrew's in the district office where it should be working perfectly.
Should be fine.
Rob, you want to try that?
So special education, their first responsibility is special education students. So each paraprofessional has about 2 to 3 hours a day where they're working on the phone and the internet and Schoology, where they're working with students and available to work with students. And so some of those students are, on any given day, it might depend on any given homework assignment that they're working on. Some homework assignments are going to take longer than the others. They're committed to being there as long as they're needed with the students that they're assigned to make sure that they get their assignments done. Then once they're done with that, they look for other opportunities around the district. And we've scheduled them on a rotating basis to do, or we're in the process of scheduling them to do food service, which is about a 4 to 5 hour job. They start at 7 and they go until about noon, 11 to noon on any given day. And they're also rotating in childcare, which is a 7 hour a day or more process. We understand, or at least I understand that there's going to be some times when they can't get a hold of a student, or the students are not going to be available, and they're maybe just going to be checking in through email rather than on the phone, and they may not be able to cover all those hours. But we're still obligated to pay them for those hours. That was very clear message from the Department of Education that we're getting fully funded for them the way we would normally, and so we're need to pay them. I'm meeting with the other directors this Friday to talk about different ways other districts are using paraprofessionals too, so that maybe we can come up with some more ideas on things to do, especially for paraprofessionals who have medical conditions or health conditions that won't allow them to be physically on site, or relatives or family members who have medical conditions that won't allow them to be on site. So I really gave them a menu about 3/4 of a page long of different things that they could do, and start with these things with the students and then work your way down to things that were further and further away from special education.
Ms. Treadway, does that answer your question, or do you have any follow-up questions? It looks like Andrew dropped and he rejoined, so maybe he's got a better connection.
Okay. No, that does answer the question quite well, Rob. Thank you so much. I am curious too. First of all, congratulations to the entire system that's providing 915 meals a day. That is awesome. I'm curious how that compares to the number of meals on site that we have served over time. Obviously, we won't serve as many meals, but I'm curious how that compares.
I can definitely get that information from food service for you and shoot you out an email after the meeting, ma'am.
Any other questions? Oh, go ahead. Yep.
This is Jerry Robichaud. Probably for Todd or Andrew, whichever one can. And I know it's really early in this whole issue, but have you gotten any information about the ramifications of the $2 trillion stimulus package and the money that's coming into education, and also the allocations that are coming from the state? Is the intent to hold districts harmless during this crisis? Do you have any idea, Todd, if you've heard anything, or Andrew, from any of your colleagues?
I'll start, Andrew, and you can certainly chime in. I've heard that the districts this year will be held harmless. I've also heard through a couple of legislators that we can pretty much kiss the $1.5 billion goodbye. There's no extra revenue as a result of the coronavirus, and that will be reallocated to other different means. It will not come to the schools. I don't know what it means to the bonding yet. The legislatures I'm just starting to get some more feedback from them, but obviously things have changed quite a bit up there with the onset. I know prior to this, and John was at our meeting down in Owatonna at our C meeting, there were over 100 different bills being considered, and I think that's narrowed down considerably with this whole COVID-19 thing. But the way I understand it, financially this year, the school districts will be held harmless. There is some talk about doing some reimbursing for food service and for childcare. And there has also been some talk about eliminating some of the silos, not all of them, but some of the different restrictions we have in our financing code. So for example, maybe we could use our, I'm not sure, whatever the codes are that we have. There's a few of them that I know we can't mix, food service and special education, but there's a ton of categoricals that we have to deal with in finance that are being proposed to be eliminated so we can use the funding all in the general fund. Andrew,
that in itself would be a great help to the districts if they eliminated some of those cross-categorical restrictions that are out there. Money that's just sitting there that can't be used except for a specific purpose. If those things, if the districts had more flexibility in using some of those revenues, would certainly make life a little bit easier, especially for you, Todd and Andrew. So let's hope that does materialize.
Andrew, did you have anything else to add?
No, I think you very eloquently put that. The big thing is, like Todd was saying, if we can get some of those set-asides that we have mandates on certain funding streams to put set-asides of X percentage, if they can get rid of that for this year, that would help us financially.
Board members, any other questions for Andrew? No, thank you, Andrew. Appreciate it. Thanks again for all your hard work and your team's efforts, and it's very much appreciated, so thank you. Todd, next cabinet person?
Yeah, let's go with Anne Marie. She's got our child care that has done, she's done a remarkable job with that. And now with the distance learning added to the child care, you may have some questions about that and how that all works. So Anne Marie, you want to chime in?
Absolutely. Is everybody hearing me okay?
Yes.
Great, thank you. I know I had problems last time. So yeah, childcare is going well. It's we've started on the 17th of March, so a couple of Tuesdays ago. But today was our first day where we were helping to support the distance learning pieces for all of the different students. We had about 12 students today, and per sort of the direction in terms of making sure that each student either had one-on-one in terms of adult interaction and student interaction, or a maximum of about 3 students to 1 adult. We definitely had that ratio going today. The staff were amazing. Just the paraprofessionals and other staff that we had join us today were so gracious and showed up and were happy to participate and did an amazing job of engaging the students. We had a real sort of routine day. It didn't go exactly as planned, of course, because Schoology and Seesaw went down, but I'll let Ryan talk about that. But we just punted and did a few other things in terms of getting students engaged. We got them outside. We got them thinking about STEAM activities. So Kelly Jensen and Pam Kennedy put together some really nice STEAM activities that I got to observe today with a couple of students. And Leslie Porras was facilitating that piece. So at the high end going forward, and I'm still receiving calls, especially because we made available care for our emergency tier 2 workers. So since that happened, I've had several more calls. I met a mother on the playground today at Roosevelt, and she wants to sign up her 3 kids. So right now we're sitting at about 19 on our busiest day. I think we'll see perhaps an increase going forward with that. So it was just all in all a positive day. Families are bringing, because we're not charging, families are rotating on a snack schedule. Just anybody out there who has some spare bottled water that they want to bring in and that are not hoarding it would be great, because our students would love to have some bottled water or little fruit boxes or whatever. So we're just taking things as they come. We're, of course, keeping a nice distance between adults and children, really trying to minimize that social social interaction that's too close together and clustering kids. But all in all, it was a great day. And yeah, staff and families have been fantastic.
Board members, any questions for Anne Marie? Not hearing any, Anne Marie. So thank you very much. Appreciate all your efforts and great job. And once again, please tell your team thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Todd, who's next?
Yep. So we have Ryan Kreminga talk about curriculum.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. It has been a whirlwind over the last 2 weeks to get everything up and running and together, getting everybody together to put together the distance learning curriculum and plans. So the first thing, on Friday, we posted the district distance learning plan, and I forwarded that out to the board members as well. That's on our distance learning site, our COVID update site. And so it's broken down as our district plan, and then also broken down by each of our levels. The teachers did an amazing job, and they've been posting amazing things in terms of to Schoology, to Seesaw, and getting ready for kids. And they're very excited. I'll talk a little bit about the first day in just a second, but very excited to get going with kids. 2 weeks was a long time to plan and prep, and they certainly contacted them during those 2 weeks to reach out to families, but they're excited to get to work with kids again. I want to talk a little bit about our distribution. So we did a distribution last Thursday for families to pick up belongings, and distributed some of our materials on Thursday. That went really well. I think Jefferson took the prize. It was either 2 or 4 families left to pick up. Everybody else had picked up their materials and picked up their belongings, which is amazing. And so it was very helpful to have families to be able to come in and get a lot of those materials. And then principals worked with their buildings to get the rest of their materials pushed out, whether that was delivering it or arranging other times with families. Like Rob had mentioned, our supply chain is we ordered some things the first week, we ordered some stuff the second week as well. In that supply chain, though, has been slowed down with everything that's going on. Just as one example, one of our big suppliers is through School Specialties, and they're housed out of Wisconsin. I see Jessica got on there too. We got 2, yeah. Our School Specialties is an example. It's housed out of Wisconsin. Well, Wisconsin went into shelter in place, and so they were done shipping at that point. So we had some more materials coming in today. We'll probably have some that will continue through this week. And so we'll be working with food service to try to piggyback off of those same distribution sites for food, to also push out materials for families. Our tech department's also been working with how they will provide tech support that's in a physical piece. If they have to pick up an iPad or they have to get an iPad and get it fixed, the main location will be the district office, and then they've got a procedure in terms of how they'll collect the iPad, make the repairs, and then push that back out to students. So all of those logistical pieces are also coming into play now. Day one of this unprecedented time for distance learning, it was pretty awesome to get going, but it also had some rocky pieces to it as well. We successfully took down a lot of technology across the state of Minnesota today. So Schoology, Seesaw, Flipgrid, some other applications, they saw such a huge influx of students, we overwhelmed a lot of the systems. So one of them we got feedback from was Seesaw. Seesaw saw 9 times the number of users they typically have in a day. That all started today. And so they are very quickly working to beef things up. They're looking to triple their server outputs by the end of this week to deal with the number of users that are into the system right now. So Schoology's having some similar pieces too. But even throughout all of that, Maria has been working with everybody and trying to get information out to everybody. Teachers have been fantastic. They have been really encouraging and looking for, okay, what ways can they connect just while things are down, and now things are all coming back up and running. We have, in terms of internet, Sam has been kind of our point person. Sam and Maria on our families that don't have internet access. We have about 130 families right now that are still working to get internet access. We've had some great partnerships with FDC, and FDC has ordered 50 hotspots that we will use within the district. The district, we're also ordering an additional 100 hotspots so that we'll have more than enough to cover the 130 families right now, which is the number that we have right now. That number is going down. Families are working with Charter, T-Mobile, and some of the other internet providers. And so that number does decrease each day, but there are some families that won't be able to get through that hurdle. And so we want to make sure that we have enough. And so we're working to get those hotspots. That hotspot, just something to keep in mind, all of the districts around us are in the same boat. And so they're all ordering hotspots too. And so the real question will be getting them in, getting them set up, and then getting them out to families. So we'll keep you updated with the number, but also where we're at with those hotspots. Families were communicated, over the last week and a half from teachers asking about devices. We've pushed out all devices at the elementary school. Our secondary 612 has had a 1-to-1, but with our elementary students, we've taken all of our classroom iPads and pushed those out to families. We're assessing that right now, which ones we have left, and we'll continue to push more out. So some families that are larger families, if they need another device, we'll push out another device. So kind of two fronts there, both a device, but also internet access. That's my update. Are there questions?
I do have a couple. This is Carolyn, and thank you. The elementary links on the web page, the Faribault web page, is really very helpful. I am interested, however, just for a general idea on how is, in general terms, how are lessons being delivered? Are they delivered at the same time of day, or is it by student choice when they would access those lessons? And then what is the plan for an all-school or class meeting? However you want to answer that would be good.
Sure, absolutely. So there's multiple pieces. So entire class piece, and especially at our secondary, teachers are using Google Hangouts. They're also using within Schoology, there's a conference feature built into Schoology to bring a class together in a live real-time conversation. And so the teachers are scheduling that with their classes. When we started off in designing what we were going to put out for distance learning, we really were trying to take into account the differences that we would have with our families in terms of the different schedules that they have, the different situations that they have. And so a big focus of all of our teachers was creating things that were more activity-based, more project-based, time, so that it could be more flexible with time. So there is, in every one of our buildings, daily connections with kids. So we are tracking it in terms of making sure that we are having daily connections with kids. Our secondary has been fantastic, though, looking at that a student, for instance, in social studies may work on social studies for a longer period of time on one day, but they have a number of tasks that they're doing over the course of the week. They may do that on Monday, but then on Tuesday, they don't put as much time towards social studies and they're working on their science. And so we really built that into the structure of what we were trying to do, because thinking about access that students have, thinking about how do we create flexibility for families so that they can work within the schedule that they have at their home. And then all of our teachers have set office hours. And so setting office hours and setting up times with kids and that availability for that instant, I don't want to say instant, but very quick response during that office hour. All of our teachers are available during the day, but they might be working with a group of students. They might be doing a Google Hangout classroom session. So they might not be able to respond immediately. And that office hour is more of a in-time time for families and students to get a hold of the teacher.
If no one else has questions, I do have another question, but I'm going to give other people a chance. Not hearing that. Is there a hoped for number of hours that you would want students ideally to be engaged? And then is there, for instance, a Monday through Thursday plan with a Friday makeup day, or what does the pace of this look like for a middle and high school student?
So within the middle and high school, one of the things that we pushed out to families in documentation is trying to encourage families to think about 30 minutes a day per class that they have. And so within that 6-period day, they may have one class that has maybe a little fewer time on one day, another one that has a little bit more time. But over the course of a week, about 150 minutes or so. If you want to round up or down to that, about 2 hours, 2.5 hours to be thinking about that for our secondary kids in particular. Part of it is they have experience both within the learning management system, and they're able to do a lot more of that. Where our elementary, the focus was more in terms of developing both curriculum that's going to help students meet standards, but also what they can do at home and what are the pieces they can do without technology, and what are things that they can do with technology as well. So in that situation, we took the 4 core and we really recommended that they have about 30 minutes per core. So that equates to about 2 hours a day. But we really encourage the outdoors activities and those pieces beyond that, so that they are making sure that they are getting out, getting exercise, and staying active. So there's definitely more of a push in terms of our secondary, middle school, and high school, and our ALC as well, to follow their, I don't want to say their straight time schedule, but that they're looking to either address each of their courses each day, or they might address a course, again, might do more of a course on one day and then switch to another course the next day. And teachers are looking at our attendance procedure across the board is really looking at a week at a time and saying, okay, these are the tasks, these are the things that students are working on, and making sure that students are getting counted as having attendance for the entire week if they've completed everything. So our teachers have been really great about thinking about flexibility with kids.
One other question. So how will students who, particularly at the secondary, well, at every level, how will they be encouraged to complete the lessons if they are reluctant to do so, or there is some overriding problem?
Absolutely. And, you know, with each of our teachers in the work that they've done in the buildings is thinking about that tiered system of how they're supporting students. So that initial piece with teachers, you know, where they're pushing out the lesson or they're doing the flipped classroom, and then the activity or the assignment, the task that students are working on, that is kind of that first initial tier, that piece of it. And then each of the administrators, the counselors, the social workers are all on board in terms of communicating out with families and working with them in a situation where a student's not responding. They're not engaged in the learning and working to figure out what might be the problem. You know, our social workers have on our site as well, we have our distance learning links, and then next to it we have our social workers and our counselors in terms of recognizing we have mental health, we have things that we have in our everyday that we need to keep doing during distance learning and make sure we're addressing that. So that's at the really the core of when a student's not engaging with their learning, figuring out what might be the roadblock and how do we help them.
Well, I have utmost admiration for all the staff. It seems as though they've done a fabulous job, and thank you for that leadership, Ryan.
Absolutely.
Board members, any other questions for Ryan? Hearing none. Ryan, real quick, thank you for your update and answering Carolyn's questions. Just a big thank you to whoever was involved in that COVID-19 website or all the information on our website, kind of a website within a website, if you will. But
yeah,
so if that's Maria and her team or whoever that is,
that's Maria and Matt, and they have just been making sure to get everything updated and out there, and they've done a fantastic job.
Yeah, awesome. Well, please. I think Matt's on. I don't know if Maria's on, but great job and thank you. One final question from me on this: the hotspot partners you mentioned, FDC, is that Faribault Diversity Coalition? Is that who you're referencing there?
Correct. Yep. Okay.
Thank you. Just a big shout out to them. Todd, I think you had told me that's roughly $12,000 or so that they donated. That obviously did not show up in the gifts and donations for this month, but it's a huge thing, and more importantly, these kids are going to continue to learn with that donation. So thank you.
Thanks, Chad. Hey, and one other thing, Chad, did you get my note about Bruce Smiles is now on? If we want to start talking about strategic planning, it might be a nice segue from what Ryan talked about and just have Bruce come on right now if you'd like. Otherwise, we can still wait too.
No, I'm fine with that. So essentially, is this going to take the spot of 10G that we added, or we'll circle back to that, or this will suffice?
Yeah, that would take place for the 10G, the strategic planning spot that we talked about.
Okay, yeah, it's not an action item anyway, so that's I'm fine with that as long as he joins. So, Todd, we'll turn it over to you and Bruce. You don't have any other cabinet members? We're done with that piece.
Yeah, I think I got everybody, didn't I? Ryan, did I cover everybody? Okay. Yep.
Okay, so we'll turn it over to you and Bruce here for strategic planning conversation.
That sounds good. And Bruce, I just want to make sure you're on. So I saw you join, and if you're on, Bruce, you want to just chime in and say hello?
Good evening, everybody. Is the volume okay on your end from this connection?
Yeah, it works great. I can hear you just fine.
Great. Thanks, Todd.
Yep. So I'll go ahead and start, Bruce, and then I'll let you take off from there. We had originally slated a couple of days in April for our strategic planning process, and obviously we had some other circumstances come up that has limited some of the responses that we've received and also the ability to meet. So we'd still want to meet and we still want to do some things, but I thought it would be a good time if Bruce would talk a little bit about the process. And then we still have the 14th as a work session with the board. That's at Tuesday night. And if we'd like to have Bruce come back and go into a little bit more detail on some items, we can ask him to do a little research for us too. So with that, Bruce, I think I'm going to just turn it over to you and let's talk a little bit about process and what this strategic planning is all about.
Great. Thanks. Good evening, board members and everybody else. I hope you're all doing well. What we have done to start the process is we had an online survey available for the community, an online survey available for employees, and an online survey available for students. We've closed those and we have results. When we get together for planning, I'll be providing summaries of those surveys, and then we'll be going to each of the buildings and having staff and employees participate in 3 different events at each building. We're going to have them micro-identify what's working and what's not working as well in the district. They're going to offer then some ideas about what they think the vision of the district should be, and vision being where you want to be in 10 years. They'll also offer some ideas about priorities. A priority is something that comes to the front burner, something that really needs to be worked on. So during that first day of planning, we'll run a session at each building and a community session in the evening where they'll have literally the same tasks. So by the time we get together as board and administration, I'll be able to bring you verbatim what people have said in each of those sessions. And it'll be a lot to look through. But in the final session, then board and administration take a look at all the results and they knock out a final vision. They get really clear about what they think the vision should be using everybody else's ideas plus your own. The board will do the same thing with priorities. They'll look over everybody else's information and pick the priorities that make the most sense to the board. Then for each of those priorities, we'll benchmark them. We'll get really clear about what you want to have as an outcome for each priority. That'll allow administration to go back and develop detailed goal plans and bring them to you for review. That, in short, is the sequence of events. Todd, should we open it up for questions and comments, or how would you like to move?
I think so. Chad, what do you think? You want to open up for comments and questions?
Yeah, absolutely. Board members, feel free to fire away here.
This is Courtney. What kind of participation did we have in the surveys?
Courtney, let me dig that up for you quickly here. For the employees, we had 40 responses. And by the way, Courtney, the responses were pretty meaningful. People wrote whole sentences and paragraphs. I mean, some dramatic some dramatic thoughts. And even where people were identifying what wasn't working as well, nobody was throwing rocks. Nobody was saying, let me tell you who's at fault here. We had 52 students, and we only had 7 community members that went to the survey. So we've got time. And by the way, their results were also good, but they're just not very robust with those small numbers. If board administration would like, we could open up the survey again, push it out again, and see if we can beef up those numbers a little bit. That help?
Yeah. Is the community member the same as the parent survey?
Yes, I believe, yeah, we labeled it community, and it was available to parents, community members, and also theoretically employees who live in the community could have answered that as well as the employees. The way I set the software up, I'm not able to tell who sent the stuff. I can tell if one computer or one phone did multiple surveys. That's all I can see. Thanks.
Bruce, can you tell us when the survey started and when it stopped?
That one I'm going to need a little help from. Todd, do you remember the dates that we pushed that? Because I don't have it. I don't have any dates on top of the survey document.
I do, but Matt, do you have Matt? I think Steichen is on. Matt, are you on?
Yeah. So we started it March 2nd and closed it on March 23rd. The problem was the week we were going to do an all-student survey in the building, I have it part of their homeroom to have everybody log in at the same time and take it, was the week that school went out and never came back. So at the very least, I would say we should reopen it again to have students do it, because we could have gotten hundreds of students in one shot on that day, and we didn't get to do it.
Yeah, I just did a similar district, a similar size district, and we had like 680 students. I mean, it's pretty meaningful data. Well, if admin and or board want to move those forward again, I can send new links. We can open them up again, try to get a little more robust feedback for numbers.
Yeah, I just think it makes sense to do that. But
I know as a parent, I didn't receive a reminder email after the initial push, and then I didn't know that it closed. So I did complete the survey, but I submitted it after March 23rd, and it let me. When I opened the link, it wasn't closed or blocked or anything.
I'll reopen it.
I would just say that we should get more than 7 parent surveys.
Yeah, I think so. And I'll make it live again and send it off to admin. And then if Matt, if you and Todd can push it out, we'd be rolling again. Thanks, Courtney.
I think we should probably decide if it's better to roll it out again while everyone's still at home. Maybe we get better participation because people are at home and have more time to sit and do an online survey, or if we want to wait until everything is back kind of to normal, hopefully in May or something, and see if it's a better time to do it then. I guess that's up to Todd or up to the board.
Yeah, I think that we can sit down, Matt, and talk about it, and then I'll visit with, if the board is okay, visiting with Chad and John, the board and the vice chair, and strategically trying to figure out when it's the most appropriate to send that out. I think we can probably do it in-house.
Excellent. I'll send
Mr. Chair, this is Jerry Robichaud. Hi, Bruce. How are you?
Jerry, good to see you. How's it going?
Good to see you again. It's been a while. Bruce, when you conduct an analysis of the data, the surveys that you're going to receive from faculty and from community, will you send the raw data, or will you aggregate it and set it up? And here's what we received the most responses regarding. How is that data going to be sent to the board, Bruce?
You're right, Jerry. It will be aggregated. It'll be the trends that show up the most often. I don't want to overplay this, but I feel like a little bit of a mandatory reporter. Twice in the last 20 years, I've had to call a superintendent and say, I can't tell who this student is, but you've got a really angry kid. I had to call once and say, Mr. Olson or Mr. Johnson or whatever in social studies may be looking down girls' blouses. I mean, I don't want to make light of that, but you guys had nothing that was unorthodox or nothing that was problematic. I mean, and your student responses, although not as robust as we'd like, were really professional. You know, I occasionally do these and students hone in on lockers and lunch. Well, your students were into some deeper topics, which is great. But I'd prefer to give you the top 3 or 4 trends under each question because, you know, there's a lot of onesie twosie stuff. And if some kid says, you know, I hate it when Sesker wears his Packer jacket, you know, it's like, well, okay, we're not going to take that all the way to the survey results.
But it is interesting. Once you ask the students for their input, they're honored and they're going to be very honest. They really are.
It's really helpful. I think it's just another lens to look at the district through for board and leadership.
Thanks, Bruce.
Yeah, you're welcome. Good to see you, Jerry. Board, any other thoughts, questions, comments, concerns? Because we've got plenty of time to address things and make things right before we, you know, get on campus and do the planning.
Bruce, I do have questions. You know, we originally had this on the docket for next Tuesday. And then that was obviously going to be in person prior to all this COVID-19 stuff. In terms of our original timeline in the process, what changes with the new virtual reality that we're living in? And if this virtual reality is, you know, through at least through the end of April, if it's through the end of May, I mean, you know, possibly into June, what does that look like? And can we then consolidate stuff to make sure we still try to hit our end target, if you will, or does that end target get pushed out a lot? What's just the timing and the process look like, if you would?
Chad, great question. This is the first time I've ever been quarantined, so I'm kind of making this up as I go along too. I think we work with board administration to do it the way you want. If, you know, Todd and Matt, if you really wanted these results prior to starting to develop a budget for fiscal year 21, we may have to build a virtual planning model. If indeed you believe you can build the budget accurately for fiscal year 21 and want to push this off until the fall, because that just seems like it's going to be more expedient given what's going on in the country. Chad, it's wide open, to be honest with you. We can do it. We can do whatever fits the district the best way.
Board members, thoughts on this? I know I had a conversation with all of you last week, and everybody had great information and thoughts, and feel free to share them here. You know, some of us talked about the timeline. Some of us talked about where are parents in a mental mindset right now with, potentially one or two parents possibly being laid off, and just all that. So board members, feel free to chime in here if you would, please. Bruce, they must all be talking at once, and you can't hear them.
Mr. Chair, I see that Matt Steichen was wondering if you could chime in. Are you okay, go ahead, Bruce. I didn't see it.
No, Matt, what do you think?
Speaking, I guess, as a parent and trying to represent the community a little bit, what might be on people's minds, I think right now is a very hectic time for a lot of people, figuring out their own jobs and figuring out their kids' online learning schedule, and everything's kind of up in the air. I think that makes it tough right now to be a time to try to get people to come and sit and give us feedback, and then adding in that trying to engage 50, 75, 100 staff members at a time on Google Hangout, I don't think is going to be as conducive to getting good feedback, in my opinion. I might be wrong about that. So since we can't meet in large groups, I feel like it might be better to hold off on that gathering process with staff until we are allowed to meet in larger groups.
I agree with Matt. I'm curious what it would look like for a delay. I'm not super interested in a year-long delay. Have you already given any thought, Bruce and Todd and Chad, what a slight delay might look like? Early summer?
Yeah, I guess I've looked at it a little bit, Courtney, but it's just so hard to predict. That's what's so frustrating with this. I mean, I don't know. It kind of bases, to me, it kind of depends on when the peak hits here and when people start going back to work, when the vaccine is found. If we wait for the vaccine, that could be another year. I mean, those are variables all over the place. So I think we're just going to have to evaluate it and then let Matt and Bruce and I maybe visit a little bit this week to see if we have a realistic goal when we can start this process again to do it. And I think we want to do it too with, we want to make sure that we're including as many people as possible. And as Matt said, if parents are more concerned about putting food on the table at this point and their jobs and taking care of their kids, it may not be a great time to send out a survey about a strategic plan.
Understood.
That's pretty much how I'm feeling.
Yeah, my hope is, though, that if we can do it within the next 3 months, I would love to have that. So we'll try to be as optimistic as we can.
Yeah, so I'll just add in my comments as well. I think I'll just echo what has already been said. I was absolutely one of those who wanted us to push full steam ahead as quickly as we could on the strategic plan, because I feel like it informed so many of the decisions we're trying to make as a district. But if we're going to do it, we have to do it right, and I don't know how we do it right under these conditions right now. I think what Matt said was hit the nail on the head right off the bat, that it's just too tough of a time to ask people to have the bandwidth right now to think about the school district strategic plan. We have to be back at a place where I think people can get together in groups again and are starting to get a sense of where their life is at, and hopefully the worst of what we're going through right now is past. So, you know, the challenge is, as you said, Todd, we don't have a clue when that's going to be. You know, we hope it's sooner rather than later, but we just don't know. But I think regardless, we need to wait until we're somewhat feeling like we're through the worst of this, and then we could start seriously talking about picking this back up.
I'm greatly concerned by delaying the strategic plan for a considerable number of months. I also recognize that parents and the community are under a great deal of stress right now. And yet, I also believe that as everyone settles into this new reality in which we find ourselves, that given a few weeks, that people will find a better rhythm for how their life is working. And they are home. So I would not be in favor of putting this off till fall, but instead taking a look at, can we as a board revisit this next month and talk with people and see how things look, how they're feeling at a month from now. Right now, people are very anxious, particularly on this first day of distance learning. And yet, I don't believe that level of anxiety is going to continue with people after they get used to this pace. They may, and if so, then if we revisit this a month from now, then we can say it's not going to work. But I do not believe we should postpone for a considerable amount of time. We have not had a working strategic updated strategic plan for quite a long time. And we have agreed that we need to move forward. And I think we need to see how we can do that in any way possible.
Thank you, Carolyn. Mr. Bellingham or Mr. Robichaud, would either of you care to chime in?
I'll chime in if I may. So what I'm hearing is that the information we have, or what Bruce, what you described, we would go to each individual building to ask staff to participate as a larger group to analyze or get the ideas that they've already submitted, or look for more. That's one. So I know we're having faculty meetings virtually, we're presenting lessons, whatever. So I guess with the information that we have now, is there any way we can start a framework of a plan? And as we, in a month, 6 weeks, whatever, add more information, data, etc., then put that into the plan as well and continue as a go. I just don't like to, I know there's stressors out there, but I just would like to see something, a framework started, and we continue to go forward here.
Bruce, do you have any comments or feedback to Mr. Bellingham before Mr. Robichaud chimes in?
Every point that's been brought up is valid. I'm here to do the best thing that the board wants to do. You know, I would like to I'm just a big fan of asking people what they think and how to use the data to move forward. Yet I understand that it's a pretty unnatural time right now. I thought Carolyn's idea of coming back and visiting this next month and with a new information, new data about the situation in the society and the country, that may be the way to go at this thing. I don't know.
Mr. Robichaud, any thoughts or comments?
I really don't at this point. I guess having known Dr. Miles for a number of years, I have full confidence in working through this process, given the dynamics that we're all facing. But I agree. I think if there's a way that this can proceed, however that may be, electronically or whatever, so that we don't delay, I agree. But that being said, if we need to delay it for a period of time, I think that's appropriate too, because we want to make sure we're capturing the data that's going to give us a comprehensive strategic plan to move forward. And if we're going to miss some of that, then I think a delay might be in order. But right now, I would certainly be in support of Dr. Miles coming back and facilitating some further discussion in April.
So Todd and Bruce, I think everybody's chimed in from the board, and certainly with what's going on, I think it makes sense to, as Carolyn had first mentioned coming back in April. What I'm not certain on is if we should be re-pushing this out to staff and students here in the near future, or if we should wait until April. I would definitely suggest not this week. I would let everybody get their distance learning feet under them and a little bit of a base, if you will. But then I think from what everybody's saying, we want to get this done. We don't want to push it out a year. We'd like to not push it out, 9 months or 6 months. But at the same token, everybody realizes where we're at. So Todd and Bruce, why don't you, reconvene here over the next month, and we'll see what state of the state everybody's in, and nationally and state level and locally, and then we'll pick it up from there. I think that makes the most sense.
Yeah. Go ahead, Carolyn.
So for clarity, are we talking about relaunching the online surveys immediately, or would that too be postponed?
I think that we would evaluate where we are district-wide. I've been really pushing our staff to return to normalcy, and whatever that means, right? But I think this fits that mold very well. Normalcy could start as early as next week for our staff. It could be 2 weeks down the line. I know it's not this week, but we've really been pushing normalcy, and I think this is part of that normalcy too. And we'll try to weigh, using common sense, when it would be appropriate to start pushing these surveys out, and getting back together and the cap together and talking to Bruce. I think we can do it. It's just a matter of figuring out the logistics of it, because it is a new way of communicating with folks, and we want to get as many people involved as possible. But I would use my measure of normalcy, I guess, is how I'd measure it, whatever that means. But that's what we've been encouraging our staff to do, and I don't know why our community wouldn't be encouraged by that as well.
We have always had such difficulty in attracting parents to attend meetings and that sort of thing. This might be our perfect storm for being able to get parents engaged. Nobody's going anywhere. So hopefully we can get these individuals to speak out and give us their feedback.
Can I just chime in for a minute here? I just have two thoughts. So sort of on the topic of purchasing 150 hotspots to support our families through distance learning delivered via the internet, that maybe it's going to be hard for us to get a lot of parent participation on a survey that's sent through email. I'm wondering if we should think about that. And then second, I really just don't think we can underestimate how messy people's lives are right now. So I agree with the pause and wait and reevaluate in April. But I am on the school board, and I am an involved parent at my son's school, and I didn't do this survey until after March 23rd. It's been a very, very crazy time. So I think we really have to take that in account. And I just do not think we can move forward on any kind of priority setting until we've heard from more than 7 families and community members. That to me is beyond coronavirus, beyond anything. The fact that we only have 7 replies from parents and community members says to me we're not ready to move forward, period. So if we can't start for a month to start gathering that, then we need another month after that date to gather that information. So that's it.
I would add, it's possible. I believe Bruce said that some of the student surveys were filled out from the parents' perspective. So if some parents got their student's link and filled out the survey, it went in as a student, but it was a parent that participated. So still not enough, but maybe it's more than 7.
Yeah, Matt, I tried to tease the ones out where, my son says, and I mean, it's interesting data. It's not from the student viewpoint. So I just sent you and Todd links again for a community survey as well as for the student survey. So you'll be able to use them when it's appropriate. And then I also put a note in there that the three of us should get together over the phone after this evening, and we'll just do it the way you want it done.
All right, thank you. Todd, anything else for Bruce?
No, we'll keep on working at it until we get it right.
Right. Thanks for
Bruce,
thanks for making everybody. Thanks, Chad.
Yeah, thank you for joining us tonight. We appreciate it.
But have a good evening, everybody.
Todd, thanks for lining that up for him to join us. So I think we're now moving to item 9H, which is the policy committee. And that's a report before we get into some policy action items.
Yeah, and I think Mr. Bellingham would help summarize that policy committee.
Well, it put me on the spot here. So we have, I believe we have four, maybe 5 policies to approve, and some changes, and then some of the first readings that we have as well. So the ones for approval have already been, we've already done the first reading of them with that, and then the ones for the first reading, you can see the changes there, and then there are some that there's 3 of them for rescission to get rid of. So there. So if you're going to go through all of them, I have no idea, or one by one, or if we're going to do them as a big swoop or whatever, we can take questions or whatever the board wants.
Thank you, Mr. Bellingham. And you can either you better say that you're opposed to this because I'm not seeing everybody's picture, but if everybody's okay with it, item H2, consider approval of the following policies. As Mr. Bellingham said, these would all be second readings. I'd like to just take them all collectively, items 2A through E. Is everybody okay with that? Okay, I'm not hearing anybody no, so I'm seeing thumbs up and nodding heads. So if we could get a motion for approval to consider the following policies, all of these at one time. Policy 534, unpaid meal charges. Policy 601, curriculum and instructions. Policy 603, curriculum development. Policy 613, graduation requirements. And policy 307, superintendent evaluation. If we could get a motion to approve all of those.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Robichaud with first motion, and Ms. Treadway with the second. Ms. Treadway, will you do a roll call, please?
John Bellingham.
Aye. Sorry.
Courtney Cavalier.
Aye.
Jason Embrecht.
Aye.
Jerry Robichaud.
I'm going to follow Billingham's way of confirming this. Aye.
Chad Wolf.
Aye.
Carolyn Treadway, aye. The motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. Item 9H3, consider approval to rescind the following policies. Once again, I'd like to take all 3 if everybody's good with that. Yep. So policy 401.2, qualifications. Policy 453.7, leave of absence. Policy 455.7, employee assistance program. This is almost like state statutes here with the dots. That's rather interesting. So do we have a motion to approve the rescinding of those 3 policies?
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Engbrecht, a second by Courtney Cavalier. Ms. Treadway, will you take roll call, please?
John Bellingham.
Aye.
Courtney Cavalier.
Aye.
Jason Embrecht.
Aye.
Jerry Robichaud.
Aye.
Chad Wolf.
Aye.
Carolyn Treadway, aye. The motion passes 6-0.
Thank you for that. Item 9H4. The following policies are presented for first reading. Once again, we'll take all three of these, and if you have any specific questions, just feel free to ask, as there is no action item taken on these. Policy 902, use of school facilities and equipment. Policy 535 is service animals in school. And policy 419 is tobacco-free environment, possession and use of tobacco, tobacco-related devices, and electronic delivery devices. Any questions for Mr. Bellingham or Mr. Sesker or anybody else on these?
There's one on the equipment usage, Mr. Chair. We want to just make note of under tables and chairs. We talked a little bit about that, and then we just missed the chairs were donated by the booster clubs, and we have made that an exemption for the youth athletics for that. So when we get this cleaned up, we'll include that exemption on the policy. You're not seeing it now, but I wanted Kathy to take note of that so that we can go back in there and clean that up. And Amory's on here too.
Thank you. So yeah, just on the last page there behind chairs, virtually in parentheses, the athletic associations would be exempt from renting chairs, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments on those three policies that we're looking at for the first reading? All right, thank you once again to the policy, I should say the busy policy committee. Much appreciated your efforts. And moving on to 10A, consider approval of the 2021 and 21-22 school calendars as presented. I know we've spoken about these at the work session, and they are now on our agenda for us to take action. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
We're going to give the first to Courtney Cavalier and the second to Jason Engbrecht. Thank you. Ms. Treadway, roll call, please.
John Bellingham,
Aye.
Courtney Cavalier,
Aye.
Jason Ambrecht,
Aye.
Jerry Robichaud.
Aye, with one question, is this just for the 20, we're not acting on both calendars, just the 2021 calendar? Is that the motion?
Mr. Robichaud, my apologies there, as I did not ask for any further questions after that. No, this is for the 2021 and also the 21-22, correct, Mr. Sesker?
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you for the clarification. I vote yes.
Chad Wolf,
Aye.
Carolyn Treadway, aye. Mr. Chair, the motion passes 6-0.
Thank you for that. Item 10B, consider approval of resolution 20-18, establishing dates for filing affidavits of candidacy. Mr. Sesker, would you like to give us a little information on this?
Yeah, no, this is just for the school board to note that we now will be, there's a period of time where we accept the candidates that would be running for school board next year. I know none of you are planning to get off the school board next year, so I'm just kidding. So it's pretty self-explanatory in there. Just to pay attention to the June 2nd deadline at 5 o'clock. That's the last day for folks to file.
Thank you for that. Do I have a motion for approval of resolution 20-18?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Treadway, a second by Mr. Engbrecht. Any further discussion? This is a roll call, or excuse me, a resolution. Ms. Treadway, roll call, please.
John Bellingham, John Bellingham,
Aye.
Courtney Cavalier,
Aye.
Jason Ambrecht,
Aye.
Jerry Robichaux,
Aye.
Chad Wolf,
Aye.
Carolyn Treadway, aye. The motion passes 6-0.
Thank you for that. Item 10C, consider approval to add a special board meeting on Tuesday, April 14th, 2020 at 5 p.m. Mr. Sesker, do you want to give us a little bit more information here?
Yeah, so we had Bruce on. The primarily purpose of that April 14th meeting was to meet and discuss our strategic planning process. And we're going to also have, let's see, now I got to go back and remember now.
Todd, was this for the bid opening of the
Yes, thank you.
or the boilers, the new bid process?
Yeah, thank you. So Kane has the bid process going right now, and so we'd like to open those up on the 14th, which is a work session. We did have Bruce come up this morning or today, right now at the board meeting, talk to me a little bit about strategic planning. So the question would be, do you want us to do another measure of the strategic planning process and give you some more timelines based on what's happened over the next couple of weeks and give you a report? Or would you like to have something else on the agenda? We'll certainly put some items that we'll be talking about at the April regular board meeting. But I'm just trying to get a feel for where you guys are with the strategic plan.
Board members, I'll turn it over to you.
I don't know for myself if it would take, well, it would be helpful to have Bruce explain via this setting what kind of time frame and what the process would be for board members once we do collect adequate data and input from our groups. I just like to know, how do we take that information? What is the process? And I don't think that would take very much time from him, but just either in writing or a verbal explanation. I would like that.
Thank you, Ms. Treadway. Anybody else want to chime in?
Okay.
Todd, is that clear? I think it'd be great to once again get any update we can from the cabinet, at that, just on how distance learning is going and everything associated with it. So, but yeah, we'll keep that work session starting at what, 5:05, I guess, or 5:10.
Right. Yep. And then right before that, we'll do the bid opening for the boilers. So thank you. I think that's important that we all keep informed on what's going on.
Okay, thank you for that.
So we do need a action item, right? Okay.
Yeah, to create that special board meeting. Yes. So do we have a motion to add the special board meeting on Tuesday, April 14th?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Bellingham with the motion and Ms. Cavalier with the second. Any further discussion? Ms. Treadway, will you please do a roll call?
John Bellingham,
Aye.
Courtney Cavalier,
Aye.
Jason Ambrecht,
Aye.
Jerry Robichaux,
Aye.
Carolyn Treadway, aye. Chad Wolf,
Aye, you threw me for a loop there. You changed
I'm
the order.
sorry.
No, don't worry.
Okay. The motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. Item 10D, consider the approval of resolution 2020 relating to the termination and non-renewal of the teaching contract of probationary teachers. Mr. Sesker, would you like to share anything on this item?
The item's pretty self-explanatory. These are just the non-renewals that the staff, the principals and the cabinet are recommending for termination, non-renewal.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion to approve resolution 20-20?
I'll move to, wait, what do I say? I'll move that we consider resolution 2020.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
A first by Courtney Cavalier, a second by Jason Engbrecht. Any further discussion?
Well,
Well,
obvious. Oh,
yeah, I'm sure I'm about to say what Carolyn said. This is a especially difficult day, and with a heavy heart that that we have to do this. We know the list of teachers here are working really hard, just like the rest of the teachers in the district and the rest of the teachers around the world right now, grappling with the transition to distance learning. And I just really appreciate all of their work and all of the commitment they've given to the district.
Thank you, Courtney. Ms. Treadway, do you have any comments you were going to say?
those were my exact sentiments. Is with great sadness that we thank these people, and yet because of budget constraints have to terminate them.
I will echo both of your thoughts and words. So thank you. Well said. Ms. Tread, any further discussion or comments? Hearing none, Ms. Treadway, please do a roll call.
John Bellingham.
Aye.
Courtney Cavalier.
Aye.
Jason Enbrecht.
Aye.
Gary Robichaux.
Reluctant, yes.
Chad Wolf.
Aye.
Carolyn Treadway. Aye. The motion passes 6-0.
Thank you for that. Item 10E, consider approval of resolution 20-21 relating to the termination and non-renewal of a probationary administrator position. Mr. Tesker, you want to comment on?
Yeah, and again, this is just a process. It's pretty self-explanatory based on the reductions as recommended by the board. It has no reflection on the job that Mr. Woods has done. He's done a great job.
Okay, thank you for that. Do we have a motion to approve resolution 20-21 relating to the termination and non-renewal of a probationary administrator position?
Mr. Chair, I'll
Chair,
move resolution 2021.
I'll second.
Mr. Bellingham with the motion, Mr. Engbrecht with the second. Any further discussion?
Well, I'll chime in again. Of course, I just want to repeat the sentiments I said earlier. This is really difficult for us, and appreciate all the work that Mr. Woods has done at our middle school and with the equity task forces. So appreciate everything he's done for our district so far.
Thank you, Ms. Cavalier. Well said. And I would like to say thank you as well. Ms. Treadway, will you do a roll call, please?
John Bellingham.
Aye.
Courtney Cavalier.
Aye.
Jason Enbrecht.
Aye.
Jerry Robichaux.
Aye.
Chad Wolf.
Aye.
Carolyn Treadway. Aye. The motion passes 6-0.
Thank you for that. Next item is 10F, consider approval to establish a self-funded health insurance program. I think we're going to have a presentation, and I see that the one and only George has joined. George, are you on?
Yes, I am. Hi, Chad.
Hey, George. So I'll let between you and probably Nicole and Andrew and possibly Todd, but I think however you want to take this away before we actually have a vote, I think we're going to do a presentation. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm not sure if you want me to jump in, but yeah, we did prepare a couple of slides to just bring the board up to speed in regards to the process of the RFP, and then also some basic information around self-funded health plans, if that's what we're able to do.
Okay, thank you. Let me, Todd, is this, do you want George to lead this, or do you want Nicole or Andrew to lead this?
Why don't I start out with having Nicole kind of introduce this and then turn it over to George. So Nicole, you want to start this for us, and then we can go that way.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, we are moving towards changing our health insurance plans for our all of our employees, with the exception of our teachers group. Our health insurance, or our insurance committee work.
Nicole, sorry to interrupt. We're getting a lot of background. I don't know if your mic, somebody's mic is picking up the sound or something, but I apologize for interrupting you, but it was really hard to hear you.
Okay. All right. Is that better? Okay, thank you. So our insurance committee met this past year several times for a lot of hours to really try and figure out what we could do to work towards long-term stability and reducing the ebbs and flows. And then also, after the teacher group left, we decided we didn't want to move to PEEP to follow the teachers, but we did want to try and keep our plans as close to what we currently have as possible, because I do really like what we have in terms of our offerings. And so the decision was to move, or to eliminate 2 of our 4 plans, modify the deductibles by just a little bit for the single and the family, both the single and the family plans for those 2 plans. And then a few other minor changes that we all agreed on. This past insurance committee meeting where we talked through these changes, we had 100% consensus, which was awesome, very cool, because we had a pretty good turnout at that committee meeting. And then, as I mentioned, we had our second largest union group, our paraprofessionals, vote on it, and they did vote in favor of it by 94.9%, which we were very pleased with as well. And so George is here joining us. He is going to present to us the self-funded insurance option that the committee is proposing for the school board for your consideration.
Perfect. Thanks, Nicole. And so I did prepare a short deck, and I'm not sure if you guys probably have received that deck prior to the meeting. I don't know if I can display it, but I can just kind of maybe walk through a couple of the slides. On the third slide, we talk through just this idea that every other year we have a requirement to go out to market. And we did that this year. Originally, looking at the entire population, teachers made a decision to move to PEEP. The remaining population decided that they liked the plans, wanted to stay where they were, reviewing, kind of staying with the co-op, going to Blue Cross Direct, and then also to self-insure with Blue Cross. 225 employees are enrolled currently in that population. 167 of those are employee contract only, and then 45 of those are family contracts. When we looked at the self-funded option, so on slide 4, we're looking at what our current premiums for this smaller population to be, a little over $2.7 million. To self-insure, it would be basically a push in the sense that we would be able to self-insure at an expected cost level at relatively similar premium. Understanding though with self-insured, we do have to take on some risk and some liability in the way these contracts are written. And so the committee made a decision at that point to fund at a 5% increase to start to build a reserve, which is a requirement under the self-funded plan. If we were to look at worst case, it would be about a 12% increase. So somewhere between a 0 and a 12% is what the overall liability is through to the district. Again, the goal was to fund at a 5% increase. As we look at long-term planning within a self-funded plan, we also want to get ourselves to a point where our fund balance is roughly around 40% of expected costs. So on slide 5, we're showing that based upon that current cost, it's a little over $1 million that we would want to have as a fund balance. If we run it expected, the opportunity is to build about $145 or so thousand towards that overall expected reserve goal. in the event that we were to run worse than that 5%, we have a potential liability, or the board has a potential liability of about $198,000. We've also done some things within the contract with Blue Cross to minimize or reduce the overall cash flow by putting cash flow regulators on the program as well. Are there questions around just this idea of us funding at a level of about 5% of an increase? Again, slightly larger than we could have gotten on a fully insured, really to try to get ourselves to a point where we're able to get stability, as opposed to this up and down year over year, making decisions as to what does our increase need to look like.
Board members, any questions? As most of you know, Mr. Bellingham and I serve on the insurance committee, so we've gotten a lot of education around this. But any questions for George at this time? Hearing none. George, will you just tell us, you have how many school districts as customers, and you have how many school districts that are self-insured? I think that gives us a bit of comfort, if you will.
Perfect. Yep. So within the One Digital book of business, I want to say we have about 28 school districts. Of those 28 school districts, about 24 of those are self-insured. So the large majority of school districts that we operate or work on behalf of are self-insured. The large majority of those also have built up their fund balances and are able to manage their plan year over year with, in reality, lower than trend increases typically, just because we're managing this and we're not building a reserve for an insurance carrier.
Thank you for that. And board members, I'd ask George just to say that in terms of self-funded is new to us in terms of on a standalone for one of our groups, but George has a tremendous amount, and his team has a tremendous amount of experience with this. So I just ask him to share that for that reason. George, you want to continue on, or I'm not sure if you have a lot more or not?
Yeah, no, I have a few slides. Really, the idea around this self-insured on slide 7 is just so that people understand when you're self-insuring, you're not buying a premium like you typically would think of with your car insurance or things of that nature. You're paying Blue Cross to administer the claims, but beyond that, there is this protection as well. So when we say self-insured, that doesn't mean that the district is paying people's claims. They're not in that process, and they're not doing that. And then also, in the event that we have large claimant, there isn't this idea that the district is totally on the hook for that. So we have individual level stop losses. So the plan is responsible, or the district is responsible for the first $125,000 of anybody's claims. And then also the underwriters make a determination as to what expected costs are. And we've purchased an aggregate contract as well that protects us in the event that we exceed expected. If we go above 115%, which is listed on slide 8, we have protection as well. So in all areas, being self-insured doesn't mean that you're on the hook for $1 million catastrophic claims or things that are happening, as you can imagine, with COVID-19 and things around that. There's protections no different than being fully insured. The difference is this idea of keeping those margins for you as a health plan, as opposed to making an insurance carrier kind of pad their pockets. So those are the slides that I have kind of brought forward to kind of help get you familiar with self-insurance, and then this idea that the district has gone through their largest group that's remaining and gotten approval to self-insure for this upcoming plan year.
Thank you, George. Board members, questions or comments for George or Nicole for that matter? Okay, hearing none. This is an action item, and so George, I just want to double check you're done with your presentation. I'm not cutting you off here.
Correct. Nope, we're good.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate it. Nicole, any reason for George to stay on, or he's good?
Nope, as long as everyone has all their questions answered, then he's good to go. Thank you, George. I appreciate all that information.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, George. Have a great night. So with that said, this motion, I'm going to ask, because this is new and because this is a self-funded insurance program, that we authorize Andrew Adams, our Director of Finance and Operations, to execute and transact all necessary business to ensure the proper establishment and operation of this fund. Once again, it's new, and so I would ask whoever makes a motion to make it along those lines. I guess, can I make the motion here, Mr.
Yeah.
Bellingham? I can make that. So I'll go ahead and make that motion that I move we establish a self-funded insurance program and authorize the Director of Finance and Operations, in this case Andrew Adams, to execute and transact all necessary business to ensure the proper establishment and operation of this fund. So that's my motion.
I'll second it.
Motioned by myself, seconded by Mr. Bellingham. Any further discussion?
I just want to chime in. I know it's getting a little bit late here, but both Chad and John have done an outstanding job of being part of this whole insurance piece. It's extremely complicated, and George and Nicole and Andrew have all done a really good job of educating everybody, and that's what's really pretty cool, is that everybody knows what they're voting on or what they're talking about, and the recommendation coming from these two, I think, is really important for our district, and it really does help our employees.
Thank you, Todd.
Chad, I'll just
go ahead.
add to
I'm
that
sorry,
and
Jason.
echo that a little bit, in particular for you, Chad, to say a great deal of thanks. You brought this in front of the district probably 5 years ago, quite a while ago, I remember, and have been championing that for a lot of years to help us get across the line. It has not been an easy or a quick process, but I appreciate your sticking with it, and for John coming on board with that, and everybody else. So thank you guys for going through the long process to get us where we are with this right now.
Thank you, Jason. Any other questions or comments? Discussion? Okay, hearing none. Ms. Treadway, will you do a roll call, please?
John Bellingham,
Aye.
Courtney Cavalier,
Aye.
Jason Embrecht,
Aye.
Jerry Robichaud,
Aye.
Chad Wolf,
Aye.
Carolyn Treadway, aye. The motion passes 6-0.
Thank you for that. Item 11, other items of information. 11A, student representatives. Allie and Kaylee, you finally get to talk here, so we will be quiet and we will listen in.
Okay, so I'll be giving a report for this meeting. Kaylee and I just want to start off by saying that the Faribault High School is very invested in their students despite not being able to physically interact with them. Even with the coronavirus pandemic, all the teachers and staff are finding ways to reach out and ask how we're doing. Now, with this starting, we're finding out that communication is even more important than before. The high school teachers are doing a great job navigating and informing all of their students on changes and expectations. This outbreak is unlike anyone's ever experienced before, especially as students. This pandemic is scary and unknown. Kaylee and I believe our country and state are doing the best that they can on navigating the unknown. We know that all the restrictions, shutdowns, and social distancing is for our own good. However, as you can imagine, being stuck in your house for this long is hard and boring. But we do it because we're trying to stop this spread. While not being able to go places and doing things that we normally do, we have to adapt and entertain ourselves. Kaylee and I have already been on a few walks together when the weather is permitted. I've drawn and painted more than I usually do. Kaylee and I have cleaned and organized so many things in our houses we're running out of options. Exercising, going outside, and watching Netflix are also a few other ways that we've been keeping busy. We know that this pandemic will eventually die down. Until then, we just have to continue to doing the best we can to help ourselves and others. Due to this pandemic, today we started distance learning. Before today, we were unsure on what this would look like or consist of. Our teachers have been doing an amazing job adjusting and keeping us updated. This is not only new to us students, but also to all of the teachers. There will be a few kinks like anything new, but hopefully we can hold on and do the best that we can. What Kaylee and I love about distance learning is its flexibility. We are able to control our schedules and learn at our own pace. However, distance learning does require students to be a lot more organized and responsible, but we think that all students will be able to adjust. This process of distance learning is learning as you go, for both the teachers and the students. We all just have to try our best and stay on top of our work until hopefully we can go back to school in May. If not, we just keep going. We know that a lot of students are disappointed about the coronavirus has taken from their high school experience, especially the seniors. Seniors are sad about their sports seasons, theater, prom, graduation, after-school activities, and many more. These things are being discussed about rescheduling them or even canceling them. However, these events turn out, Kaylee and I hope that everyone will be thankful for what they can get and what they already have. Everyone has to compromise during this pandemic, and what is being done is for the best of everyone's health. In times like these, we're overly thankful for the technology that we have. With technology, we're able to have meetings like this one today. We're able to communicate with our loved ones, friends, and even teachers if we need help with school. Technology provides us a form of entertainment, communication, intelligence, and so much more. With technology, I was able to FaceTime my entire family for my grandma's birthday. I can even FaceTime a friend when I'm bored. Technology will help us get through this pandemic in so many ways. The coronavirus pandemic is pushing everyone to be a lot more creative and adaptive to these unexpected situations that we have. Kaylee and I are also so thankful for our teachers being so invested in not only the students learning, but in the students themselves. We're so thankful for this community and for always caring for one another through hard times. We hope that everyone will try their best to adjust to what could be our new normal. As we get through this pandemic, we hope that on the other side we can excel once again. We are Faribault.
Thanks, Allie.
Yeah.
Is Kaylee still on?
I think she's still on, but I'm not sure if her microphone is working. She was struggling with that earlier.
Okay. Board members, do you have any follow-up questions or comments for our student representatives?
Allie, I just want to tell you I really appreciate being able to hear from you tonight. I spent a lot of my day with two third graders here from Roosevelt, and it's nice to hear your perspective. I really appreciate it. It's a good note to end the night on, I have to say.
Yeah,
So
no
thank you.
problem.
All right. Thank you, Allie. We appreciate it. Good luck tomorrow. Hopefully Schoology works.
Thanks.
Yeah. Moving on to school board members. I'll open this up, item 11B.
Mr. Chair, this is Jerry Robichaud. I just wanted to inform the board. I've had some conversations with some about a activity, a Zoom session with Professor Larry Cuban from Stanford University in California on the whole issue of school reform. That session is going to be open to a couple of the board members have indicated an interest. I know that Todd was expressing interest in the book when the session first started. But if any board members are interested in joining that session on Thursday from 4 to 5:30 with Professor Larry Cuban regarding the whole issue of public school reform, a century of it, and a discussion far more interesting than the book, Carolyn, and Chad as well, and Todd. But if other board members are interested, I would encourage you to please let me know, and I will send you the information regarding this session. I think it might be relevant and very germane to the whole issue of strategic planning as we take a look at it. And Allie, I appreciated your comment about, your perception about this is a new way of doing things. As a student, for you to have that insight is just absolutely dynamic. And thank you for bringing that up. So I appreciate it. But again, if any other board members or any board members are interested in more information on this session with Professor Cuban, please let me know and I'll get you the information. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Other board members, any comments you'd like to share? All right, I'm not hearing any. I would just like to share that last Wednesday, we had another mental health meeting. This one was virtual, and I believe Jessica is still on here. Jessica Lewis has joined us, but she joined us on that for the first time. And I think we had about 16 people on it, and it's just fascinating to hear the cross information sharing that's taking place. And so I'll continue to update the board on that as we have our meeting scheduled every month. And with regards to mental health, I know that the Chamber Vision Task Force, which is part of their board, has made mental health a top priority as well. So that should hopefully allow for more access to grants or funding and things of that nature. So I just wanted to share that. And then I just wanted to thank everybody that's on this call for all your whirlwind efforts the last couple weeks. The Faribault community for stepping up and volunteering when we need volunteers. I know that's getting blasted out, and by the sounds of it, we're filling all the slots through community help and through the district and whatnot. And so just hats off to everybody doing something a little bit different than the norm. And as we've said before, we're all in this together. But just a bang up, great job to Todd, everybody that he works with, and all of you that work with all the staff in your buildings and whatnot. Thank you much. Really appreciate it. Anything else, board members? No. Okay, we're going to move on to Mr. Sesker. Any update you'd like to share?
No, you really summed it up very well, Chad, at the very end. I just letting you be aware of that. We're getting better and better with this Google Hangout, Meet, Zoom, and all these other different things. Leadership met. We had 31 people online. Our secretaries, counselors, and social workers, we met. We had 21. So when Carolyn talks about participation, I've normally only had about 10 or 11 social workers, counselors, and secretaries at the meeting. I had 21 at that last meeting. So it was really good. Calling into Minnesota Department of Ed, listening to the commissioner update us on what's happening with schools. She's been terrific, a great support for us. I was on KDHL on Friday. Anne-Marie was on Saturday, and then Jamie Benty and I were on this morning, just trying to make people comfortable that this transition is really happening, and it's doing a great job. And as you heard from Allie and Kaylee, the kids are starting to adjust, and they're probably adjusting a lot more easily than the adults are. And the last thing I just want you to know too is I've been taking some virtual walkthroughs. So I really love to get out to the buildings and go into the classrooms. And what I've been doing is, because we really don't have any classrooms now, is I've invited various staff to join me at certain times through Google Meet. And then we just have a conversation. So it's kind of random. I'll pull 5 or 6 staff members at a time, and then we'll just visit during the day. It breaks up their day a little bit more. Last week was kind of crazy, so they were able to kind of update me to tell me what they're doing with their plans and just have a good conversation about how they're doing. So my real walkthroughs have now been replaced with virtual walkthroughs, and we'll continue to do those too as we move through this process. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, especially Allie and Kaylee, for getting that update. I think it's refreshing. I know it was refreshing for me to hear from the students, and it's just nice to hear those voices. That's all I have, Chad.
All right, thank you, Todd. Dates to remember. These are information only, but item 12A, Monday, April 6th, 3:30 District Advisory Committee meeting. I would assume that's virtual. Is that correct?
Everything's virtual, yes.
Everything's virtual. We live in a virtual world. Tuesday, April 7th, 3:30 policy meeting. Tuesday, April 14th, 5 p.m., the special board meeting. That is what we added tonight. Tuesday, April 14th, 5:05 to who knows whenever we end the work session. Once again, virtual. Monday, April 20th, 7:30 a.m. That's our Finance Committee meeting. And Monday, April 27th at 5:30 p.m. is our regular scheduled board meeting. So with that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Are we allowed to do that?
Well, you want to do a roll call, Carolyn? That's fine. Thank you.
Do you want a roll call?
I think we have to.
Okay. John Bellingham,
Aye.
Courtney Cavalier,
Aye.
Jason Ingrect,
Aye.
Jerry Robichaux,
Aye.
Chad Wolf,
Aye.
Carolyn Treadway, aye. Passes 6-0, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful night. Great week.
Thanks, you
Stay
guys.
safe.
Thank
you.
you.
All. Have a good night.
Good night.